everybody, Nick here. Hope you guys are doing well. And as I'm sure you've heard countless times over the last several months, the data of internet users has since become an unstoppable market force, one that aids the 9-figure growth margins of only a handful of technology companies. Bloggers, journalists, and technologists, and everyone really, has sought to describe this generation's obsessive relationship with data, and with what we've labeled akin to the oil of the 20th century, 5 technology companies have profited enormously from the use, manipulation, and solicitation of our internet data. Every Amazon purchase trains an AI system that knows what you're going to buy next, and every CAPTCHA response you fill out builds an unspeakably accurate trace of your internet history and activity. Okay, so at this point, you're probably scared, infuriated, or just flat out indifferent. Regardless, all of this evident manipulation of our personal information begs the question: are we adequately compensated by internet companies for relinquishing our data, or must we demand further financial benefit in doing so? Let's check it out. Okay, so before we begin bashing the leadership of all of these technology companies, it's important to understand why this is even a debate in the first place. Contrary to popular belief, this is not robbery. Internet companies take our data, and in exchange, they offer up free services that have fundamentally bettered our lives. We don't care that we're being traced whenever we're using Google Maps, and we don't mind that Apple knows where we are and what we're doing whenever you ask Siri for the weather. So, before we perceive these organizations as piggish capitalists and new age robber barons, it's important to offer forth a few concessions. Many of the world's greatest gadgets and innovations are fueled by our data, and without it, the world would be a much crappier place. Now, that being said, when we begin to think long-term, problems start popping up all over the place. First off, many people argue that these free services that many of the internet companies offer up, like Google Search, Translate, Maps, Siri, and so on and so forth, are merely a drop in the bucket compared to the potential revenue generation from our unfiltered internet data. Unfortunately, I can't argue with that, and as we begin to see fields like autonomous vehicles, photorealism, and natural language processing, it's easy to see why. This constant inpouring of information has underscored concepts like universal basic income and automation-induced unemployment, and has made them that much more prevalent in today's society. So I think given all of this, it doesn't seem that far-fetched to ask that we should rethink the way we collect our internet data. Enter micropayments. Now, this concept of paying people for their data isn't necessarily new, but I want to go into one perspective in particular. The system developed by Jaron Lanier in his piece, Who Owns the Future? As Jaron puts it, every time an internet company makes money off of your data, you deserve to get paid. Similar to how YouTube pays content creators for ad revenue, or Spotify pays musicians to upload their music, technology companies should initiate a revenue split whenever they use your data to improve their flagship products or just make money in general. Even Apple, a company that has been notoriously bad for ripping off its customers, gives out 70% of App Store profits back to the original developers, again, in this effort to give credit where credit is due. Moreover, it looks like this system could actually help technology companies in the long run. What better way to keep your audience engaged and motivated in using a particular product or service than to pay them for doing what they're already doing? It's pretty brilliant, and I guess the system works in theory, but there are a couple of problems that we need to discuss. The first is that not all data is equal. Somebody's probably willing to pay you a lot more for your Google Maps history than they are for your random search queries at 12 in the night about a random donut shop. And the second is that there isn't any framework or general pricing ideology for units of data. Are you going to pay people per gig, per terabyte, or per some random unit that we currently don't have? Ultimately, as I've said before, micropayments are nowhere near perfect. Legislation is lacking, and one piece of data can be worth more than another, so a lot of kinks need to be ironed out. That being said, this is a great start though, because as we begin to settle into the reality where automation will come to govern much of our lives, it's left up to us to develop programs and innovations and philosophies that can help us mitigate the negative effects of such a reality. So maybe the answer isn't in micropayment systems, but one thing I know is that people need to be compensated for the internet data they produce, and this is a great start. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for making it this far. Click my links down below to read my Huffington Post articles and follow me on social media when you can. Thanks, guys.